The Carolina Hurricanes have been a fascinating team to watch over the last few years, especially when it comes to the draft. It is so plainly obvious that their focus is just value. They don't care where you're from, how big you are, as long as you are a value selection where you go. It's helped them make some really good additions up front with the team in the NHL, with the deadline and such, and I think it helps them round out their roster with an empty spot here and there that they can fill with a good player. And I think that trend is only going to continue from here, and considering this is a team that's been deep in the playoffs for a number of seasons in a row, I don't know what more you could really want. And there isn't anyone here in the franchise or core category leading things off for me. This one might surprise some people, but I still really see a lot of value in Vladimir Gradinin. Every single time I watched his team in the KHL last year, he was playing 20 plus minutes a night, and doing that in the KHL is not easy, especially for a 5'11", 5'10" defenseman. And the skill and the dynamic skating ability was still there, and the offensive tools were still there, and I would just love to see a little bit more confidence and a little bit more deployment in better offensive scenarios to see some more point production. But I feel like this is a guy that once his contract is up overseas, he might be an NHL defenseman and one of these guys that you might throw to the side because of how small they are, but if you play them, you might get some really good results. It also might surprise some people that I still have Timur Mukanov in here, a guy that I had ranked really, really high, and again, when you go and watch Cherepavets this year, he didn't play a tremendous amount, but he got so many kicks at the can, so many chances, such a great hard-working player that really makes a lot of his shifts really matter. I would love to see him play with the puck a little bit more, play with a little bit more of a dynamic style of play on the puck, but that might be asking too much at this point in his career, but as an energy forward down the lineup one day, I still think there's something there. I wouldn't say that those two players are the so-called best players in this category. That probably goes to Bradley Nadeau, and I've really liked this kid. He had a great year, he touched the NHL here and there, and again, this was a player that I thought was a really good complementary scoring option in the NHL one day. He scored a ton of goals this year in the AHL. The offensive skill is absolutely there, and I think that this guy should be an NHL player, if not this season full-time, maybe the season after this one, and a pretty decent one. And then there's a few defensemen here as well, Dominik Badinka, and surprisingly, maybe to me and some others, is Roman Bausov. Now, Bausov and Badinka, I'm a lot more excited about Badinka, but I just feel with Bausov in 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, could turn out to be a very interesting defenseman to put down your lineup. He's humongous, but really, really lanky, really, really raw, but gets around the ice pretty well, and while I don't really think there's a ton of offensive tools there, as a simple but effective defenseman, I think there's a lot you can sink your teeth into here. Badinka didn't have the most incredible offensive season in the SHL, which is somewhere I thought he was going to improve, but at the end of the day though, the mobility is still there, the skating ability, the overall just defensive anticipation skill. There's a good player here with Badinka, and I know that Carolina is still excited about him as well. But then things open up a ton, because the maybes category for Carolina is huge, and honestly, I'm not surprised. From start to finish in the draft, they draft guys that are maybes when everyone else is drafting guys who are at best long shots in my opinion. I still remain steadfast that a guy like Gleb Trikozov deserves a spot higher in the pyramid, but last season was a disappointment. When I watched him in the AHL last year, he did not play very much, so when you look at his point production, he was getting fourth line minutes. I don't know what else you expect of him. They brought him over really, really quickly, but as far as I can understand and from talking to people, there's just a growing distrust from a lot of NHL teams regarding development over in Russia and really giving guys the tools around them that help them develop into NHL players. In the VHL 2 years ago, Trikozov was really heavily relied upon as a primary goal scorer, and I just feel like those habits just ate up a lot of that playmaking potential in his game, and he does also look a step or two slower than he did when he was a 17-year-old, but he is young, and I'm hoping for a bounce-back season this year. The understanding, as far as I know, is that the expectations were higher for him this year, but he was starting to do better until his injury shut him down for the rest of the year this year. This will be a big season for him, and I'm going to have my eyes trained on him pretty firmly because I'm still a huge fan of him, and it would be really disappointing to see Trikozov not really work out, because I went back and watched some of the footage I pulled of him in his draft year, and I still think that this kid just had so much in the tank. So we'll see where it goes, but I still have faith even if he's dropped a couple of tiers. I love Jaden Perron still, but I'm waiting for him to just take that next step offensively in college hockey. Felix Ungersorum gets downgraded here. I don't think he had the most amazing season in the AHL, and I was never as high on him as I think Carolina was, considering he almost made the team last year, but an interesting, smart player nonetheless. But the really interesting guys here are guys like Noel Franzen, Viggo Nordlund, Justin Poirier, Philip Ekberg, Kurban Limatov, Ivan Ryabkin. These are all just high ceiling guys that just are missing some key ingredients that could hold them back from an NHL job. But I mean, if those guys play a game or 2 or 5 or 10, considering where almost all of those players were drafted, those are draft pick wins, and Carolina does a really good job adding those guys. There are 2 goaltenders in here, Semyon Frolov, Yegor Vemelkin, 2 really interesting options that I've seen here and there over the last season or 2. And the other guy that is in here that I just know Carolina likes is Charles-Alexis Legault. He's not flashy, he's not amazing, but he just goes out and does a solid job. Also in this tier, you've also got Charlie Serrato, Fyodor Avramov, Oscar Vuolet, good offensive toolsy guys. Avramov is bigger and more physical. Didn't have the most amazing season this season, but I think he still is a bit of a slow burn type player that has a lot of room to grow, and although his ceiling might be a little bit limited, I think you give him time and he'll figure things out. And then in the everyone else tier, there's honestly not a whole lot going on here that I really want to talk about. I do kind of like Andrei Krutov though. He was an interesting swing in the 7th round, and again with Russians you can just leave them there indefinitely, and who knows what he is in a season or 2 or 3. Stanislav Yarovoy is another interesting one, but again I'm not sure about NHL upside, so there are some interesting players in here for Carolina. I'm a huge fan of their whole pipeline though. They just have done such a good job unearthing just good value. Now if I had my way, I probably would have looked a little bit of a different direction here and there and gone with some bigger swings with some maybe more risk, and rather than just looking at a player's pedigree or history and going, well, if they figure out what they were a year or 2 or 3 ago, then maybe we have a guy that's worth taking in the 2nd round or 1st round or yada yada yada. I think that's a fine strategy, but there are players that have been on the board for Carolina that I might have thought were more up their alley stylistically, but they still have added some really intriguing players and some personal favorites of mine that have been coming along really well. Guys like Gradinin and Mukhanov, and I'm still really hopeful for a guy like Trikazov. So with that, the Carolina Hurricanes, again, we're rating based on how they have drafted, based on the value of picks they have got. I have to give them a 1D. This is a team that is not drafting in the 1st round very often. This is a team that has not missed the playoffs in quite a while. This is a team that really shouldn't have this many really interesting players in the system, but there is just not that many teams in the NHL that seem to approach the draft like they do, even though everybody talks about how good of a drafting and development system they have. I don't really know what that's all about, but hey, I'm not in the driver's seat. All the credit to the Carolina staff here. I think they've done a really good job bringing a good group of players together, and we'll see how it works. I mean, they've got a great NHL team, and this is just a good group to tinker around with and see who fits around the periphery that really suits what the team is trying to be. So a good group, and all around, I'm excited to see where they go. And with that, we're going to call it. If you liked the video, definitely like and subscribe. If you really liked it, definitely consider a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you can get access to all kinds of fun data tools and our Discord server and plenty of other fun stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else on the internet. So check that out at Scouching.ca. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.